Okay, in this video, we're going to plot the timing of our ball out on our motion guide. So it's basically going to be little marks on our paper that show where the position of the center of each ball should be on each one of our drawings, or on each separate drawing. So I'm going to use a blue animation pencil for you to see that with, so it contrasts the motion guide that I have in here. You want to make sure that you plot out the timing on your motion guide as well too, because it just makes it easier for us to know exactly where the ball is going to be or supposed to be as we're drawing each individual page later. So first of all, we have to think about how long this animation is going to take. And so when in one of our observations when we were watching the ball bounce, we realized or thought that the whole animation took about 4 to 5 seconds. So 4 to 5 seconds in animation means that each bounce is going to take roughly a second. Roughly a second, with the first bounce, this first full bounce, being the longest. And then we also observed that as the ball got near the end of its path, the timing went faster. So this would be a full second, this might be 3/4 of a second, half a second, so on and so forth, so that it's kind of decreasing in time, or it looks like it's going faster in time as the animation progresses. Something to know about animation is that we are working at 24 frames per second. That is standard definition. So what you would kind of see on like old TV programs. Nowadays, most television and movies are at high definition, which is somewhere between 36 to 64 frames a second. So a lot faster, or more frames. You're seeing more frames to get that high definition, but we're going to work at standard, which is 24 frames per second. So I'm going to write that at the top of my page. You don't have to write it on yours, but just something to remember. 24 frames per second. So you see 24 drawings and 1 second's worth of animation. We as animators though kind of get to cheat that a bit. We do a process that's called on twos. That's the animation term. So what that means is that 24 frames is a lot for your eye to see in such a short amount of time. We can trick the eye into believing the motion that we're seeing and still show less frames. So we can animate on twos, meaning that each drawing will be doubled. So number 1 would play twice. Number 1 drawing would play 1 time and then a second time. Number 2 drawing would play twice. So it would be 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. So that means we can get away with doing 12 frames per second. So in our case, 12 drawings or frames, that's the animation lingo or animation vocabulary, 12 frames is going to equal 1 second worth of animation when we animate on twos. So that very first bounce here of mine needs to be about a second. So I know that I need to give it 12 frames or 12 drawings. So I put that number down here at the bottom just to remind me that I need to make markings for 12 different drawings along that path. So I want this next one to be not as long as a full second. So not 12 because that's a full second, but I'm just going to guess. And I'm going to go with 9 frames. 9 frames for that one. This one I might decrease by 3s then. So I might do 6 frames for this one. 3 frames for this one. Maybe add a frame or 2 at the end here. And then maybe give me about, since this is half of a full bounce, and a full bounce would be a full second, which is 12 frames, half of that is 6. So I'm going to do 6 frames down here too. So now I know about how many frames or how many drawings I need to pace out my timing so that each bounce is a little bit faster than the bounce before it. So now I'm going to add little marks or little hashtags, little tick marks I call them, along this path that's going to help me later on when I go to animate. It's going to help me know exactly where to put the center of that ball every time. So I like to start with this very first bounce that I have here. And I'm going to make sure that it gets 12 different tick marks on it. I'm not going to put one down at the very beginning because that's going to count at the end of the next one. So I know that I have to have one at the center. I know that I also have to have one where it ends. So just little dashed marked lines that are going to help me or show me where to make my drawings on the final version. So that takes me down to 10, okay? We also, in the previous video, or in the videos earlier, we were talking about timing and how to create timing where it looks like things are moving slowly and how to create timing where it looks like things are moving fast. So if I want something to look like it's going slowly, then I want to make sure that my drawings are paced out really close together. So they're really close together or they overlap. So the closer they are together, the slower that motion is going to be because it's covering less distance between each in the same amount of time. If I want it to go faster, then I'm going to have more distance between my drawings. More distance means there's more space between each drawing, so it has to go to that next drawing basically faster because there's more space. So more space means faster, more distance between the drawings is faster, more closely put together means a slower motion. So we also observed in our observations that at the top of our bounce, the ball appears to hang or slow down before it accelerates down to the ground. So I know that I'm going to put two drawings, one on each side of that middle one, spaced very closely to that middle one so that I can get it to go slow. So now I've got 8 more drawings to work with, and I'm going to still go off that center mark. So I still want it to go slow, but I don't want it to be even, so I'm not going to have that same amount of space. I'm going to give it a little bit more space off to the side of that. So you can notice the distance between these two and these two is greater than here. So more space here, less space here. So it's going to go a little bit faster and slow down and get a little bit faster. So 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I have 6 more frames I need to add. So again, I'm going to go on opposite sides of this, and I'm giving myself more space because it's going to go fast as it goes up and slow, and then accelerate fast when it goes down. Okay, I'm going to keep adding them, giving them more space between each mark that I make. So I got 2 more left. So I'm going to have these be closer to the bottom of the arc because it's coming off the ground here. It's going to go fast as it goes up, and it's going to go slow as it gets to the top, and then accelerate fast as it comes down before it hits again. So that's the 12 that I've paced out along this. That'll take 1 second's worth of animation. So I'm going to continue now along each of my arcs or each of my waves here for each bounce, making sure that I total up the frames to be the same as what I've planned out for the bottom. So in this next one, I know I need 9, so I'm going to start with 1 in the middle at the top, 1 where it hits the ground. So that gives me 7. I'm going to add 1 to each side of the center, again keeping those very close. That's 5. Give myself a little bit more space. 3. 1 left, and I'm gonna always put when I have an uneven number, I always put the extra 1 on the side where it's first starting to bounce up because it's gonna accelerate fast as it goes down here, and as it's coming out of hitting the ground, it's gonna be a little bit slower. So that's the 9 for this one. So now I'm gonna plot the 6 on my next one. Same method or same process. The very top center gets a mark. The bottom where it hits the ground gets a mark. So now I have 4. 1 to each side of the center where they're kind of really grouped closely together. Now I've got 2. And I'm going to go a little bit farther out from the center to get my last 2. Now this one only gets 3. So I know I have to have 1 where it hits the ground and 1 where it's at the center. So 1, 2. And my next one's going to be, again, when I have an uneven number, I go close to where it starts, the beginning of that bounce. And the last one here, I'm just going to add a little one halfway along that line. And then the very last arc I have to plan out is my very first one. So I have 6 that are going to go on this one. So again, I know I need one at the bottom where it hits the ground. I need one at the top of that arc. So now I have 4. So there's 1, keeping it close together. 2, a little bit more space between it. 3, a little bit more space between those, so because again it's starting to go faster as it accelerates to the ground. And 4. So that's how I planned out the timing, by adding little marks along my motion guide that is going to help me when I get to the animation part. Remembering that if I want a motion to appear slow, I keep the drawings closer together. If I want the motion to appear fast, then I move the distance or keep the drawings farther apart.